Hey guys. Yeah, so like the title says, I'm just going to explain to you what I know about spirituality and how to get into it. I'm a little high right now, and that I'm actually the perfect amount of high. You see, what happens is a big part of spirituality is being in the right state and being in the right mind. So, in order for you to move into that place, in order for you to be, you have to feel comfortable, and it has to be something that you want to do. So even before you can learn about spirituality, you need to invoke your spirit and you need to be engaged with it. So those things that I was just saying, this is me dialoguing with your spirit. You don't really know what I'm talking about exactly. I haven't like said anything specific. There's no information going on. But you can tell by the tone of my voice, by the cadence, by my calmness, by my engagement, I'm relaxed. Also, I'm a little high right now, and that helps me relax. It helps me get into a spiritual state. This is why a lot of cultures use drugs to have spiritual experiences because it's a lot easier to be in touch with your spiritual self when you're in a altered reality. So, like you go through life. Let's hope like you go through life sober, and you're there for most of the time. And then you do a little bit of drugs. I'm on marijuana, which is legal in my country. Canada. Woohoo! I'm not actually from Winnipeg. I'm from Toronto, but Canadian pride and all that. Brotherly. I opened my heart to the other Canadians, and I just started identifying with them. So this is like the first spirit. Is like you guys know what I'm saying, right? Like this is just a basic level. I'm a little excited and nervous because like YouTube and stuff. So like you don't need to go into that tension. You can just see me as a person trying to make a YouTube channel about something, and this is all the beginning. So have sympathy, empathy, open your heart, feel okay. Like I'm a person. I'm here. This is a big lesson of spirituality. This is like one of like the tenets they teach is like to connect with other people and to in so the connecting to open your heart and feel love towards others. And you don't know me, hopefully, probably you're listening to this by yourself and there's no one around, no one can see inside you. So what is inside your heart right now? Like when you're listening to me, what are you thinking about me? Are you thinking I'm some weirdo? Are you thinking I'm like some guy, I'm full of bullshit, I don't know what I'm talking about, I just clicked this video because whatever, like, or are you thinking like, oh, this guy's really cool. He's at home. Like, look, you can see his house and there's a chair behind me. Like, what's going on with him? Like, who is he? Where's he from? What is he about? Why is he wearing a shirt that says Winnipeg when he lives in Toronto? Right? Lots of shit going on. I just realized you guys can see the reflection. But that's how that works. I'm gonna pull this down. That's how that works. Right? So like you're experiencing something right now, and that's thing like what you're listening to, like so that's experience. Like, when you have that, if there's a voice in your head that's telling you stuff about me or about the situation or what's going on, that's like the inner voice, that's the inner dialogue. So like the Buddhist kind of like a lot of spiritual people, this is like more like Eastern stuff. I shouldn't say Buddhism because really Hinduism is also like has that as well. But one of the things that you're doing is you're trying to, the voice is talking to you, the voice is saying things, right? So sometimes you're the voice, and then sometimes you're not the voice, you're just listening to it. When you listen to it too much, when the voice is just overtaking you, that's called rumination. This is how it exists in psychology. So psychology, you rumination, you want to do stuff about it and things and stuff. But like one of the main things that they do is meditation. And meditation is the basis of, it's not the basis, but it's like the starting point, and it's like a big thing in Buddhism. Like I'm not saying Buddhism is all about meditation. I think it's actually much bigger than that. But one of the things that you learn how to do is to meditate. And so what is meditation? So meditation, instead of saying meditation, because meditation is very vague, it means different things. It could mean a specific thing, or it could mean general things. But it really, like, let's say it's in a class of things or something like that, or it's part of the bigger picture, the ecosystem of, like engaging with your mind, engaging with your mind. So that voice is what we call our mind. So it says things. It often has ideas. Sometimes it will shout at you, sometimes it will do things, whatever. But that's your mind. And so is your mind making you miserable? Is that voice making you miserable, right? Like, is that voice saying nice things or mean things, or well, like, what's going on there, right? So yelling at you is good ideas. So that, like, first step is to like that voice. First step could be to engage with the voice. So you're engaging with the voice. You're not necessarily using words. You might use words, and then you guys kind of switch back and forth. So you have the voice in your head, and then you talk to the voice, and the voice talks back. But if you don't know that's you, that's that's kind of like hallucinations. It's like schizophrenic very much. Um, Spiritual people are always in this like weird state where, like, if they make a mistake, then they can go, they can become schizophrenic. And this is why early intervention with schizophrenia is very important, because if you can, like, right at the beginning, when the voice starts to other, or the parts of you, like parts of your experience are something else that you don't know what it is. Are you panicking and fighting that and shutting that down? Because if you're going to do that, then you're at war with yourself, and that doesn't end well. But if you accept it for what it is, then which is alternative experiences, then you can go down a much more spiritual path, and you wind up talking about things that normal people don't understand. And so you still get stigmatized and stuff, but you're still much better off. Yeah. So really, like, I think a lot of these, like the shamans, right? They had the shamans in the olden days, and the schizophrenics. Like today, there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities. It's just today, it's I think a big thing about today is our culture, right? Our culture doesn't do well with the subconscious. It's not mean to. It's like kind of mean, especially like with the culture war that's going on. You guys know, between like the right and the left. I don't know if you paid attention. It depends where you are. It depends on what's going on. But like U.S. elections is a really easy one to see what is the culture of, at least the culture of America. I'm in Canada. We're within the sphere of influence of the U.S. I think I don't know. I heard Australians aren't that into U.S. politics, but I think England also has stuff. Like there's big culture war stuff going on now, and so you see that with like the crazier people, like the fringes of society. They're also crazy. I mean, technically, definitionally, fringes of society are always gonna be crazy because that's where the crazy people go. But you know how it is, like in the olden days, in this idyllic period, which may or may not have been true, but these are the stories that people say, right? So a big part of spirituality is an oral tradition. So oral traditions sound weird. I guess I'm mostly talking to white people now. Oral traditions sound really weird, but they're actually very mundane when you're inside the religion, or sorry, inside the culture. Sorry, I just assume religion is a culture, but also, like, I don't want to say race is a culture, but kind of like we do that today, right? Like, we say Native American culture. Like, Native American is more of like, is it a race? Is it genetics? What is it, right? Like, is it a religion? Is it culture? Like, whatever. I don't know what it is. It's a dumb term. It's like a term it's not a dumb term, but it's a term. It's an ambiguous term. But like when you're inside it, like think about it from their perspective. Like, I grew up inside a culture, inside a religion, inside Western society, which I guess normal people would call that insulated. But it didn't feel insulated because I was exposed to a lot of things. It was just not the things that everybody else is. It's a different culture, but this is like the dominant one, the culture where the culture, like the normal culture, right, that we live in. And it says things and it does things to your psyche, and a big part of spirituality is dealing with that. So just like broad strokes, so there's, like, let's say east versus west. with like the Muslims kind of in the middle of that. Muslims, Zoroastrians, whatever, like all those stuff are kind of in the middle. But you get like because that was a lot of like the silk trade route. So, okay, so this is like more like history of spirituality. So there's kind of like independently between the East and the West. So you have like China, India, Japan, those places, and then you get, which is like all the way east, and then you get the West, which is like Rome, mostly maybe Egyptian, depending on how you want to do that. Maybe like somewhat like the British Isles, and then the German stuff is a little more in the middle. So like they weren't called Germans back in the day. They were called I forgot what they were called. They're the people that Rome used to always fight. Like the barbarians, right? Which are just like, it's just others, right? Sorry, the camera's gone off. So so you get an intersection between them. What that means is that, like, so you have like, really, it's like Jesus would be like Christianity kind of dominated there, and then in the West, I don't want to say Buddhism dominated, but I think in the spiritual sense, Buddhism or Hinduism. I think Buddhism came from Hinduism. So if you want to be like more technical, like Hinduism is a much older religion, like especially compared to like Christ, like Christianity, right? So Christianity came from Judaism, and Judaism is also really old. So Judaism, I think, is around 3,000. They say it probably. My understanding is it's probably remnants from, or at least in big part, it's remnants from the Egyptians, which they stopped being like a big deal like 3,000 years ago. Bronze Age collapse. So like Bronze Age collapse and Judaism started, I think, around the same time. Maybe like I think Jews were a little bit after, but it could have. This is like a crazy theory, but I think it's like an offshoot of that time. Like there was like the whole world got upended during the Bronze Age collapse, which is like crazy shit, and like nobody exactly knows why, but there's a lot of good theories. And they're really interesting, and they teach you a lot about history. This is a really cool thing, actually. Just a side note. Conspiracy theories teach you a lot about history, because someone has a conspiracy theory, to even understand, like, from this, not like modern, like whatever, like whenever it takes place, right? So like historical theories. So like Guns, Germs, and Steels, for example, Jared Diamond. So he's his stuff is really good, right? A lot of people have problems with him because the line I like is, he gets everything that doesn't matter wrong. He's wrong about everything that doesn't matter. So like he constructed his theory in a way, but like all the facts he kind of used weren't exactly correct, I think, or at least a lot of pushback. I'm not a historian. I don't know. I can't say it's not correct, but I do think that it wound up being not true. But like he has a general theory of history, and it's a really good theory. Not like everyone accepts a good theory, but like a really good one. Like this would be like leading edge stuff. I don't even know how they do studies on this. This is a big problem. Everyone likes to do science and academia, but science really comes from academia. Like it's scientific method and stuff, but like sort of the history, like that. Science is created around. They say it's Francis Bacon. So that would have been like 1700s under like the British. The British started this, right? And a lot of these people were from Christianity. So this is like a thing that people don't know, and this is well proven. This is not like a conspiracy, like crazy history lesson. This is legitimately the Christians, like Like the science came from the religion. Science came from Christianity. A lot of the spiritual people and the academics, there's a lot of overlap between them. So for example, Newton. Everybody doesn't know this. Newton invented fucking gravity and calculus and I think some other stuff. Like he didn't invent. Obviously, he didn't invent gravity, but he conceptualized the universe in such a way where gravity makes sense. Though before that, it was just like, oh, stuff falls down. And he's like, no, stuff doesn't fall down. It moves towards things. Matter moves towards matter, essentially. He didn't say that. I don't know if he said it that way, but like it's essentially mass is attracted to mass, which was huge. Like this let us, like you can fly rockets on this stuff, right? And he was an occultist, so he believes in like this magic, and he was trying to turn lead into gold and all that stuff, right? And so a lot of that stuff is bullshit, but the stuff that wasn't bullshit we call science. So I think like chemistry was done really well then. I don't know, like Newton era, but like those people, right? Like that's all very the same like spiritual path almost, right? Like people don't realize this, but science is a spiritual endeavor, right? Like science is not about getting the right answer. It's about the process of getting the right answer. Right, the science, which is essentially like the scientific method, just done. The fleshed out version of the scientific method is science, and the scientific method is, like it's like a whole thing. It's like hypothesize, right? Like it's like a ritual, and it's a path that you take, and you take it through to find out the truth at the end. And the truth, you come up with a theory, you test it. You run counterfactual. You run experiment. You have to run experiments. So you come up with a theory, and then you make predictions with that theory, and then you do the tests that would prove you wrong. So like science theory isn't fact. This is the best explanation that we have, and like that's what science is. So when people are like science, when they're saying follow the science, they're saying follow the best answer. But a lot of times people don't do that. They just shortcut it. They say follow science, it's this, and then that's it. These people have no idea what science is. They're not scientists. If they tell you they're scientists, they're not. If they can't follow and explain the scientific method, they're not fucking scientists. I'm not really I'm a scientist, but I'm an amateur scientist. So I'm allowed to just kind of do whatever I want. But you're allowed to call me out on it and correct me when I'm wrong. And that is allowed. This is what it means to be a scientist. Like you have to accept this on yourself. And so, before I was saying, so this is like an off branch of like Christianity that like went in this way, and then the truth is so important. To follow the truth, you do experiments, and you find out what's going on, and then they're like, "Oh, did Jesus walk on water?" Well, no, it's not possible for people to walk on water. Did Jesus? He does all these things. Then they're like, "Oh, Jesus is just some guy." And they forget about him, and they have heroes like Newton or whatever, right? Newton or Hawking is a big one, or a lot of people like what's his name, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a good one. People like, and they follow him, and they're like, yeah, these are the people that I admire. These are my heroes. That's how I live life. And if you do that, then this is your religion, and that's fine. It's not exactly what I would call an organized religion. I will give you that, but it is still a religion, and it's fine. And it's fine. And this is a big thing. This is an important part of Western culture, is that everybody worships however they worship, and that's fine. We let people worship is important, religion is important, spirituality is important, and everybody gets to do it on their own. This is your own choice that you go through. And these are the decisions that you make, and this is how you live your life. In China, it's not really like that. In China, it's like, this is the religion, and if you don't do it, you're doing it wrong. Some parts of the U.S. are like that, right? Even with Canada, like within religions, like people will judge you and things like that. Like this is this is not fully there. But when it's not there, what it does is it just alienates more and more people, and then you become more and more insular. I think the technical term is you become siloed, where everybody just is living in different realities, and then that's going to come to clash, and it makes it hard to do things. It ruins the fabric of society. This is another thing of spirituality. You're always doing these like grandiose terms, but there is a fabric of society, and I don't mean that literally, like it's made out of thread, but I mean that we have relationships with each other, and those relationships, if you think of them as strings, or or like a metaphysical connection. So this is a thing, right? We've just moved into metaphysical connections. What is a metaphysical connection, right? Hopefully you followed, you know what I'm talking about. You might not like my language, but I don't care because I'm just explaining this to you. This is what these words mean, and these are how people use it. You cannot like it, and that's fine, but I'm going to use it because I actually like these words. These are great words to explain these things. It's just a little like depending on your context, right? Like I do get that there's a translation, an inferential gap, as they say, but like these are good words, right? Like you have this metaphysical connection. It's not physical, right? Like you have a relationship with someone, like you're not actually attached to them by strings, unless you're like into that, or it's a dog. Like a dog, you have a physical connection because your metaphysical connection is one of two things. Either your metaphysical connection is weak and you're not able to connect with them in a way where you're both on the same page about who to attack, or alternatively, maybe you do have that connection and just other people can't see that. And so they get scared. And so now you have to always have your dog on a leash when you're in public. But, when you're in private, it's like this and that, right? Like it's like how much do you trust your dog? To the extent that your connection is, that's how good of a connection you have with them. It's a metaphysical connection. It's not a physical one. Boom. Now you know what metaphysics are. And we just did like this whole crazy train thing. Which sounded a lot like a ramble, and it was a ramble. Technically, I was just rambling now, but I set out with something very difficult because if you think about it, like now that you're in here, you have this like view or this understanding or like this inkling, like it should feel pretty strong to you, right? If not, we can do a collective meditation or a thought experiment if you're of the philosophy type of what are your connections? So look around the room or think in your head, that voice in your head. Just kind of sit there and let the voice say things. So I'm going to ask the voice questions, right? So this is like a spiritual medium. So you're not connecting with me now, you're connecting with a higher power, being the voice in your head. The voice in your head, and if you're above it or if you've included the voice into your head, then just enjoy my words. And then that's your spiritual connection. That you enjoy yourself and feel relaxed. I'm giving you some of my vibes. But if you hear the voice in your head, then that's fine. Like listen to the voice. Don't I'm not saying to do what it says, but treat what's showing up in your head as as suggestions. This is a really good. Someone told this to me when I was younger. Because like from the science perspective, like it doesn't matter where ideas come from. It matters if they're correct or not. Right. So I can come up with, theory, or a scientist can come up with theory, or a child can come up with theory. That theory is as good as it is. It doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is right now, is this theory testable? Like, is it testable? And meaning, does it predict things? So the theory has to be able to predict things, and those things have to be correct. So it has to predict things for it to be a theory, and those things have to be more, let's say, more correct than incorrect, or those things have. Let's just keep it simple. Those things have to be correct, and for it to be a good theory. All right. So like flat Earth theory, for example, is a theory. It predicts things. It predicts that the Earth is flat. It's a bad theory because all the evidence points to it being not correct. So it exists as a theory, but it's a bad one. So don't use that. Like, don't navigate your life using the theory of flat Earth. Although you kind of can, because the Earth like kind of like it pretty much is flat, right? Like I know that if you went in a plane and you went around, like you would go around, but like the angle of it's like a circle, right? So like the angle is at it's not a circle, it's a sphere, but it's at like less than 100th of a degree. So if you take the root like the degrees like to see this is a right angle, so right angle is like this, and this is like a 45. So like it's like you can't even see it, right? Like if you used a leveler, it would be level, right? Because levelers use, and I mean like the old school ones, they use water, and so water seeks its level, water is flat. So if you like use the leveler, like if you like a leveler, like get a stick leveler, and if you had one long enough, it would go around the earth because like it's got some give, and it's got more give than the earth. Like it's got more give than the fucking like the earth. Like so it's like pretty much flat. Like functionally it's flat up after it, you don't start to notice it past like I think 2 miles. Like snipers, for instance, they have to calculate. They have to take that into the calculation because um, the bullet, like the Earth is curved, so the other person's farther down. They're not in a straight line. So normally you just do line of sight, but snipers can't do that past. I think it's past 2 miles. I don't remember what it is exactly, but it's like very elite snipers have to deal with this. I mean, you did a laser pointer, it wouldn't go straight. But it doesn't matter. The point is that you're here right now and you're having this experience with me. And I don't know if you made it to the end. I guess you did, or else you would be listening to this. But this is spiritual practice. So we're engaged in a spiritual experience, and we're doing that with each other. And this is what spirituality is, and this is an example of it. And I think I did a really good job. I tied it into science. I tied it. I mean, this is a good. I did a good job. You should enjoy this. I'm going to show off right now because I don't know how to end videos, but I know you're supposed to end with like putting things together. So talk about all the stuff we learned together. Oh yeah, we talked about all the stuff we learned together. So we learned about the science side of things and how that came out of Christianity, which came out of Abrahamism or whatever, like Judeo-Christian stuff, and then also came out of and then that probably came out of like the Egyptian stuff. So like religion, like the spiritual stuff is like spirituality has existed since before civilization. Some say that it's what caused civilization, and like it could be, but I have no idea. I think it kind of. I like to think it is kind of, but I don't know. There's no real evidence for that. Either way, like there's no evidence of like what's going on before before anyone can write it down. Um, but they had like pendants and decorations and stuff, and so is that just like, oh, I decorate myself because it's fun, or is that like religious significance? I don't know. I'd love to know the answer to that. If there are anyone around the time of like I guess the Neanderthals or before, please let me comment and subscribe. I'd like for you to tell me like what it was like before then. But as far as so that's this side, and then the other side is the east is it's like Buddhism. So in China, it's much more collective, and like you have to believe Confucian, the version of Confucianism that the government believes at the time. So I don't know. I don't really like that stuff so much, but there's some good things there. They have a lot of honor sort of stuff. They have a lot of politics stuff. It's their poetry and things, because their society is so. Yeah, we could do a little bit of this. The China, and this is my understanding of it is like kind of designed for a single government. So like they didn't always have a single government, but it became very quickly. This is the um, Sun Tzu. So Sun Tzu, essentially, you guys heard of Sun Tzu, Art of War, right? People just think like he's some general. Like he was some general, but he was much more than that. He was the guy. He wasn't the emperor at the time. He was the general, but he was essentially the military leader at the time. He united all of China militarily. China got united militarily. So it's the Han Dynasty, which most Chinese claim they're from the Han because that's the dominant culture in their society. I don't know if they can tell each other apart, but like Irish and Scottish people can they tell each other apart just by like looking at like their facial features. Like I don't know, or like English people and Irish people. Like I don't know, they kind of look the same to me, but maybe they look different to each other. I don't know. So although I don't, the truth is I made that analogy, but I don't know if it's that genetically close or not. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have said that. But um, he essentially united the country like that, and that this is one of the reasons why like he's so famous, because before then it was like there was like wars and stuff, and you could have good generals, but this isn't like a general. This is like the guy that runs the army. This is like commander in chief essentially. Um, but they had it split, so he would have been. I guess it's technically Secretary of Defense for. I don't know. It's like Churchill, right? Like it's kind of like Churchill, where like Churchill was in charge of the military. He was also in charge of the civilian side, but um, I don't know that Sun Tzu was. I don't know if he was or not. But either way, Churchill like lost powers in his because he was a wartime prime minister, and that's fine. Different people are good at different things. But yeah, Sun Tzu was pretty badass, and so his stuff, like a lot of his philosophy comes, and like that's, you get these like, this is what China's really good at. Japan, I think, also is pretty good at this kind of stuff because they're also very military. They're both militarized. They're both like military societies. So they're like warrior societies, kind of, right? Like you have like warrior tribes. Um, some tribes like their profession is war. Some of them are agrarian, some of them are nomadic. Like tribes tend to coalesce around an economic situation, right? So, economic meaning like food, right? Like how are you guys getting your food, right? Like that actually tells you a lot about the lifestyle of a person. Is where do they get their food from? So in our day and age, it's going to be where do you get your food from, and like how do you pay for that if you pay for it, right? And then that's going to tell you a lot about someone, right? That's essentially what we call jobs. But like for them, they might have like different roles and stuff, but it's not like they have jobs, right? Like they have lifestyles. I don't mean it's a diss like they're jobless. Like I don't care about that. It's that like if you're following the bison around, then you're nomadic, right? Like you're a nomadic tribe. If you're planting crops and then saving that up, then you're agrarian. And if you're doing that with cattle, like if you have cattle, so then that's a whole thing, right? Because the cattle got to in the olden days they would like these nomadic places, it's tribal, like pre-agrarian-ish, or like still hunter gatherers. They're like they might like sort of take care of things, but they're still going around in a circle. Like they need a lot of land to sustain themselves. Nowadays, it's actually crazy. Like the amount of land you need to sustain yourself is like virtually nothing, right? Like it's an apartment. Like a lot of people do studio apartments, right? So like they go to studio apartment and then they go to work, and so it's like, and they have a desk at work, right? So it's their footprint is, and if you're in a building, right, like your footprint is like, what was it, like 2 square feet, like nothing, right? Like studio apartment is like let's say it's like a studio apartment plus your office. if you add up that square footage, but then divide it by the amount of floor space in your building, like it's almost nothing. Like even like rich people living in a penthouse, like you live in a penthouse and you have the whole floor to yourself, like you're really, really rich. But also, how much space are you taking up, right? Like you're not taking up a farm's worth of space, not even a farm's worth of space. And so this is one of the, like, it's just like we're so efficient with the amount of land we use nowadays. And people don't appreciate that. And you have to count also, for this calculation, you have to count also the food, which I didn't count. But growing our food is actually really efficient, relative to nomadic tribes. Like the amount of land they need to sustain their way of life is crazy. Like the population density is so small. And I'm not saying it's a waste of land or something. Like there's something to that, but like fuck. This is what I think we should do. Actually, I actually have a brilliant idea that what we should do, because some people want to live this lifestyle, right? So we tend to think of this more as like this is how native people live, but like what the fuck? Like I'm native. I'm just not native to here. I'm native to somewhere, and my people had to move and go around and stuff, right? Like I'm Jewish, so I have this like crazy history of like how we got kicked out of our lands and this and that. Like we came slaves and we're here and there, and like we have beef. Like we still have, like, as a Jew, I still have beef with this tribe of Amalek, right? Because Jews are also like a tribe. So the tribe of Israel, actually. It's like a whole thing, because like even within, we call it tribes because we have like different tribes within our tribe, but we're also a single tribe. That's crazy. That's like Iroquois, right? Like the Iroquois were like that, where they were like a confederation essentially, right? Where they had a bunch of tribes, they got together and they decided this is how they're going to do shit, and then they do things that way, and then they're able to interact with each other. So they're like one unit, but they're many. And interestingly enough, United States is like this as well, even modern day, right? United States is actually a federation, not a confederation. They had a whole war about that. Actually, they had a civil war on whether it's a federation or confederation. Federation meaning that you can't leave and you have to follow the rules, and confederation meaning you're there but you can leave. Like if you don't like it, you can leave. So the Iroquois, I don't know if they're a confederation or federation. Their treaties might have been a little bit different as well, so like it might not fit nicely into those categories. But like it's like like them, and then like the U.S. and then the Jews also, like tribe of Israel. So I'm descended from tribe of Judah. We don't really care about that stuff anymore today. Actually, that's not true. Sorry, I made a mistake. There's the tribe of Levim, Levitites. I don't know how to say that in English. So the Levim and the Kohanim, which are the priest class, they're a tribe, and they got the priests and then the secondary priests. So like the secondary ones. But nowadays, everyone from that tribe kind of, not everyone, but most of them claim to be of the higher priest class. And so they're the priest class, and they have tax. They tax Jews. We don't really pay that anymore, but like when we get established more, and we have like when we rebuild our temple, which we predict will happen someday. We don't know when, but it will happen. It will happen. And someone's going to come in and they're going to do it. That guy's called the Messiah. And there's like a whole thing for that. There's two Messiahs. There's like the herald, and then there's the actual one. And by the way, I'm tribe of Judah. So I'm tribe of Judah, but I'm not the priest class. So the ruling class is the ruling tribe is the tribe of Judah. They're the ones that are kings. The only kings are allowed to come from Judah. There's other people come from different places. So the priest class, they do priestly things. They collect their priest tax, and they do sacrifices. But they don't make the laws, and they don't make. We kind of have like different branches. So we have like the priest class. We have the legislative branch. So not the legislative. It's kingly. So it's like government. But this would essentially be legislation. It would be legislative and executive branch. We put them together. So it's not. Okay, this is actually super complicated. Like our legal system is crazy complicated. I'm gonna explain it because it's fun. But so we have the priests. The priests, they come from a tribe. The kings come from the tribe of Judah's. They're anointed by the prophets, and prophets can come from anyone, right? It's just even non-Jews, but not really. We don't really listen to them, but like we kind of like if they're right, we'll listen to them. But it's like different priests, right? Like you gotta have like from our God. It's like a thing. It's like a thing. It's but it's the prophets come from just anyone. Like anyone can be a prophet. Like not anyone can be a prophet, but prophet can come from anywhere. Just like in Ratatouille, right? Like that's the lesson at the end. It's not that anyone can become a chef because the main character couldn't become a chef because he sucked at it. He didn't have like the knack for it or whatever. But the rat can become a chef because chefs can come from anywhere, but they're not. Not everyone could be a chef. It's the same thing. Prophets can come from anywhere, but not anywhere can be a prophet. And so prophets come from I think like all the tribes. Tribe of Judah is king as king. Tribe of the Levium, Levium or the Kohanim, which are essentially the Kohanim, which are a subset of the Levium. They're descended from Aaron. It's all the people that were descendant from Aaron, Moses' brother. So Moses brought everyone out of Egypt. I don't think we know who his descendants are. I think he did have kids, but we don't know who they are. Like, I know unless somebody's got like a specific claim to it, but it doesn't really matter. They have no special status. But Aaron's kids have status, and then also judges. So there's the high court, and that's 70 judges, 71 judges, and they do they make the rules. So they're the legislative branch essentially. Then the kingship, the Judah, which is would be the executive branch, and the priests would be like the priest class. Sorry, the Sanhedrin are also are technically the judicial branch, but like the high court is going to be. I don't know if that there was a difference between legislation and judicial. Yeah, I don't think there was that separation because the way the U.S. government works today, the legislative like makes the general rules, and then the executive they get power on like very short periods of time, or and they get two power sources essentially. Like they're only allowed to do two things. Like it's very like restricted. Like who can do what is very restricted. Back in the day when they were kings, like they could do whatever they wanted. And that's kind of what made you the king is that you did whatever you wanted and you controlled the area, right? So that's how conquering works. So by right of conquest means I control this area and now we have like a certain understanding with each other. And so some kings did shitty jobs and they like murdered everyone, and some kings didn't, right? Some kings did a good job and the land prospered. Obviously there's like all these factors that are going on, but essentially like you want a king that's going to do a good job and not one that's going to like do a bad job. Nowadays presidents, prime ministers, like I live in Canada, we got Prime Minister Trudeau who has a lot more power than the current president, Joseph Biden. He's got way less power than the Canadian government does. Relative to the people, he's got a lot of power because America is a very powerful country. So he's probably got overall more power, but just as a person, but he's got less control over the country than Trudeau does. But Trudeau still has to get a lot of stuff approved by the party. Like he took a lot of power during the last protest, mostly peaceful protest, and that was not cool. He did a lot of stuff behind doors, but like those laws were there. He was just interpreting them in ways that they were not meant to be done, and he didn't get pushback because the opposition leaders were on the side. So there's a secret meeting which as of making this video, we don't know what happened during there. I don't know if they're going to let out what they're talking about, but it essentially was a secret meeting between the heads of the government, and they then decided to invoke emergency powers, and they did a lot of stuff that, like, really, really sketchy stuff. Actually, Canada is super sketch balls right now. They froze a lot of the accounts of, like, anyone who donated money to the truckers. They froze their accounts. So it's like, and they did it under the guise of terrorism. So it's essentially like kind of how the US does, like Homeland Security can do all these things because, like, defense of our nation. And to be fair, that is like the right of every government, is to defend their nation. This is their job. Like, this is their job. If your government is not defending your nation, this is not a government. This is not, like, I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's not a government. It's like a mafia or something, or like those people, they're taking advantage of you, and you shouldn't give them any respect. If they're defending you, and they're legitimately defending you, then you have to at least respect them on a basic level. Doesn't mean they don't need reform and all that, but it does mean that this is their God-given right. Right? So this is the kind of getting back into spirituality, but it's a spirituality at the intersection of, like, I see it as like game theory, where nations are essentially like a membrane. So, like, the US has its borders, and they don't let the Mexicans in, but they let the Canadians in, because this is their membrane. It's much more permeable towards certain populations than other populations. So I have a friend who is from England, and immigrating here was very, or let's say Canada, right? So Canada, we have like certain things. Like, if you're from a developed nation and you have a valued skill, then we kind of let you in. And if you don't, then we don't. I mean, you also get in, but it's just harder, and we let in less people. And there's debates back and forth on what the membrane should be. Just like every country, right? And every country is going to have immigration debates probably forever, like, as long as we have countries, right? Because it's deciding in who are we letting into our party, right? Like, this is a party. You guys don't understand. You're living in Western civilization. Like, I know it's hard, but it's a party compared to, like, other places. I lived in Israel, and Israel is also a party, but it's a dangerous party. like they could get invaded at any time, and they have been. And there are countries around them with a lot more countries around them with a lot more guns are pointed at Israel. And if they see weakness, they'll kill everyone in there. Not everyone, but there will be another genocide. Just like the Turks with the Armenians, and more like the Turks with the Armenians than like the Holocaust. That's what the next genocide will be. And Jews don't want that. Jews fucking hate dying. They're sick of this shit. Like, guys, you know how fucking long we've been in exile? We've been in exile for like 2,000 years. It's crazy. As long as Christianity has existed, because Jesus was like right at the end of the Second Temple destruction, and then the exile happened there. So it's like maybe like 100 years or something. I don't think it's 200 years. It's less than 200 years for sure from the whole Jesus situation. So as long as, and then Christianity didn't necessarily start with Jesus, started after this and that, but essentially, like, Jews have been in exile for as long as Christians have been around. Like, this has become our religion, is to be in exile. And so for us to, like, go back to Israel is huge. This is huge. This is like if the Native Americans were allowed to go back, but like in 1,500 years. like literally, like white people didn't come over to, aside from like the Vikings a little bit, but like, you know, like let's say the colonization that didn't start, you know, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So like that's when colonialization essentially started. You know, you can say like, well, when it started in mass, this and that. It started in South America first, and then more in North America, but whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that's only 500 years, give or take. Um, that's 500 years. We've been in exile for 2000. So like that's 4 times longer than they've been, and we're still alive and we're still around, and everybody wants to get rid of us, and we're like, fuck you, I don't want to die. And also we're good at being citizens, and I want to advocate for Jews right now. We're really good at being citizens. Like Nobel Prizes is like 25% Jewish when we're people keep saying 2% of the population, but it's like 0.02, I think. It's like crazy small. Like it's like small, and we're huge. Like we hit way above our class, and we make things better generally. I do admit there are exceptions, but they're not like Ben Shapiro or whatever. There's like a couple, some here and there, but like that's everyone, right? And like we're really good. We're not perfect, but we're really good. We're really good citizens, and that makes us. But we stick out, and so that makes us like the thing to smack. And this is how you tell the society's healthy: is how are they treating their Jews. If they're treating their Jews fine, then you're like this is healthy, like you're gonna survive. If they start like rounding up the Jews, you need to get out of there because like bad shit is going down, and they're using the Jews as like a tool. Anyway, so it's actually amazing. Like going to Israel was amazing for me. I didn't have really like spiritual experiences and like, oh my God, see the thing and I have all these things there. But because I didn't really know what spirituality was at the time, but I had an amazing experience. And because it's my people and they're so diverse and so different, the whole thing is amazing. And you can have this, no, you can't have this because this is mine, but you can have other things, right? Like it's like a lot of this stuff is like connecting to yourself personally, connecting to the world and seeing what's going on. And this opens it up and it opens you up. And a lot of people they bounce off of it because you got your shit, right? Like nowadays it's common that we always talk about like you got your traumas. And that's true, but you got a lot of stuff that's not just trauma. And that stuff has not necessarily, good that can bounce you off. And yeah, this is an intro to spirituality in a nutshell. Like, can you say what it is at the end of this? No, but do you have a sense for it, or it's more like a way of approaching it? So, do you have like when people start talking about spirituality things, can you start to absorb it and like understand what they're saying? And that doesn't mean that you agree with them, but the first step to spirituality is not agreeing or disagreeing. It's understanding what the person is trying to say or what's going on. The last step is realizing what's going on. And that is that's the journey. It's understanding what's going on and then realizing it like experientially in the way you live your life. And it's like that big a step, but it's like the difference between a condom, right? It's like the condom difference. Where are you living life in a bubble? Like, are you living life like wrapped in plastic and like sterile, or are you like out there living life, like fucking life? And yeah, it's more dangerous for sure, and you got to be careful. But it's so worth it. Like you can make kids with that, you know what I mean? Or have good sex or whatever, right? And like that's worth doing. It's worth living life connected to it, like bare skin. It's worth having an intimate connection with the life you're living. And it's hard, and you're gonna get hurt, and you're gonna make mistakes. Um, but you can just move around and like feel what's going on. It's feeling what's going on. This is a big part of it. A lot of people they just like say stuff, and it's just like, ah, and you're just like, oh, what is this? Or you have like these superficial conversations. When you have like these like deep connections, real intimacy, real understanding, that changes you. And I think a spiritualist, like to me, a mystic or like one that walks this path is one that this is what they want in life. Like I'll take the STDs of the universe because I am the universe and I already have those STDs. You know what I mean? Like you try to divorce yourself from reality. Oh, reality is bad and this and that. I'm good. Like, dude, you're not good. You're the universe. Like whatever you think the universe is, that's what you are. So this is why it's important to have good beliefs and to believe God is good. Because God is essentially the universe or the master universe or the creator or whatever, however it is that you conceptualize God. That's like existence, like or at least existence, or at least like the existence is the thumbprint of God. So if you believe God is bad, then you're bad, and this goes both ways, right? Because you'll never really understand God or the universe or existence or whatever, but you will try to, and you'll live in it, and that's the best you can hope for because whatever, because you're just a human. Sorry, like you're just a human. If you were like the universe, then fine, then maybe you can understand it. But yeah, universe can't understand itself either, because no machine can understand itself, because it has to understand itself understanding itself, and you can't do that because it's exponential. You can go along a path that feels that way, and it feels really good when you get there. Like when you have this insight and realization where you're the universe experiencing itself, experiencing the universe experiencing itself, like you get recursive, and that feels fucking amazing. That is an amazing high. Shinzin Young talks about this. He's a good mystic as well. Like he's much better than me. Like I'm not saying as well. he's good. I learned a lot of stuff from him. It's just check him out. I think I can make better content because his stuff is he's like older and I mean no disrespect, but there's a touchstone of society today, and he has a weird history. He has an interesting history. He's a very interesting guy, and I definitely recommend it. But I think I'm more down to earth, although he is very down to earth. Whatever. We have different perspectives. Everyone goes different things. I don't need to compete with him, but he is awesome, and I do love competing with him. Like it's like kind of like heroes, and you look up to your heroes and you try to emulate them. And I forgot what I was saying. But whatever, this is like a long thing, and there's like a lot of points here. Another thing that's going on is there's a lot of different levels of abstraction. So Vervaeke talks about this optimal grip. So there's a bunch of different ideas, and they're talking about different things, different levels, essentially like different levels of abstraction or different levels of complexity. There's another one. Well, that's like no, that's a kind of side, but it's like how are you conceptualizing the universe? And so just for like the science, let's start with the science religion side of this. The scientists, which are like the people that worship science, or like they worship science, but they don't worship it and like bow down to it. They worship it as in it's their religion. And it's like different. They have like a whole different belief system, right, and stuff. But essentially the scientists, so like the science users or scientists is the correct terminology. They so like they have let's say they have math on the bottom. So math is the most abstract, it's the most pure, it's the deepest, the most clearest connection to the universe. So Neil deGrasse Tyson calls it the language of the universe. So the universe speaks. When the universe speaks, it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in math. So when you get closer to math and you get better understanding math, you get a better understanding of the universe. And this is actually, I think this is technically correct. And I say technically, it doesn't mean it's the most useful, best way or only way, but I think technically if it's the most accurate way. So math is the most accurate description of the fundamental structure of the universe. So it's essentially like the fabric. It's not even the fabric of the universe. It's like pi equals 3.14, whatever, right? Repeating. That is only true in Euclidean geometry, right? So it's like a specific subset of math. Now, it happens to be the most common subset that everyone talks about and likes to use because that's the one that accurately describes the world, the physical world around us. But and so I'm not dissing it. Like that's the stuff you learn in school and all that. And yeah, that's kind of like the main one. You have no other non-Euclidean stuff, and that is also true and also describes the universe. But it also describes like reality, but it describes like a different universe. So actually, these terms, these are very technical terms within the science, within the scientist religion. And I like how I'm doing this, where I'm looking at science as an outsider, a as a set of beliefs, because this is a big thing that goes on, is to move outside your paradigms, and to move outside your paradigms is very hard to do. And so when you get to see other paradigms, this is like a windfall, and should get excited. You'll probably panic because that's what happens when your whole world gets turned upside down. But like, try not to panic, right? Like, it's okay to think things that are bizarre. Like, that's fine, right? If that voice is sharing things or telling you things that are bizarre, like, that's fine. It doesn't matter. And so, like, that's a single paradigm, but now we're in this like liminal space where we're talking about the different paradigms. This is technically a meta paradigmatic discussion now, which is like a very high level, hard place to go. But the point is, and then you're the one having the experience. So you're talking about it, or you're listening to me talk about a meta paradigmatic conversation. So now we've gone up a step and we've gone into experiential. So what you're experiencing right now, and if you followed it, you might be annoyed at me, but if you followed it along, you're in the highest chakra now. I can actually feel my head move. This is like the crown chakra. There's actually a bunch of different chakras. So we just went like meta paradigmatic into a different paradigm that you see that you probably didn't like. I would guess like most people think chakras are dumb, which I also used to. But then someone showed and explained to me what chakras are, and I'm like, holy shit, that is amazing. So this is essentially like the chakras are like your energy. It's your energy body. But I feel like, I don't know if people are following this, but energy. So like energy, I talk about this on my other podcast, but just a quick recap of what energy is. Energy is the thing kids have a lot of and old people don't. That's what energy is, right? Like, oh, that kid is full of energy, right? But as soon as I start talking about energies, I've lost you. Like, what the fuck is that? But you can see when a kid has too much energy and they need to go burn some energy, right? Which is kind of crazy. Like, adults would never burn energy. They need that shit. Like, I know I have a limited amount of energy in my life, and I'm careful on how I spend it. And that's what maturity is about. But that's really just dealing with the fact that you have low energy. And you have low energy for reasons. And so you have low energy for reasons is because the energy in your body is not moving nicely, right? So technically speaking, that you should have lots of energy because, like, unless you're starving, but most people, they have no food to eat. And from a physics biology perspective, the food you're eating gives you energy, right? And there's enough energy in there to do whatever you want, right? Like, you're not for most people, the limiting factor is not actually how many calories they have. It's like something weird. It's like things aren't going together properly. Like, you don't have your shit together, really. So things aren't all in one place. It doesn't flow nicely. You keep getting stopped. weird things happen that make you feel bad, and so you retreat and you avoid. You have all these bad habits, and you do all these things that you know you shouldn't be doing, and then that makes you not what makes you low energy, or it makes your energies all out of whack and undistributed. And so there are different places in your body that like the energy is stored, it tends to coalesce in different places in your body. And so most people can't feel this because they're not attuned to it. They don't spend a lot of time just sitting and noticing, watching the energies move. So they don't know what's going on. So it all sounds like nonsense. But when you sit and, they call it meditation, there's a specific one, Kundalini meditation. Is like a specific technique for releasing you release the energy at the bottom. So you focus and you spend a lot of time, you focus on your sacrum and stuff. I don't know how to do this one. It's kind of a bit of a forbidden technique. Like you really shouldn't be doing this unless you're in proper form and you got everything right, which I don't know how to do. This is like a very advanced psychotech, they call it, where it's like a technology of your psyche. And so they release at the bottom. So if you feel like the bottom of your spine, like your sacrum area, and then like there's energy builds up there around maybe your pelvic floor, and then it's like a snake. So it like comes up and then it moves up the different places, and you move up the different chakras until it comes up the top of your head, and then you're enlightened. Not enlightened, but you're something. You're awakened. I don't know what the term is, but your chakras are clear, so the energy is flowing as it should, and then you become very calm, and you're able to just. It's like kind of like shock, but like not bad. So like in the movies where like things are going on, everything, and then everything just gets calm and like they know what to do. So that's like a focus. But this is like everything. It's like focus, but it's everything. So everything is focused. And that's cool shit. And I think everyone has experienced this. Like to move down, it's not exactly this, but like a thing that everyone has experienced is very similar to this is flow states. So if you're like there and you know what's going on, you know what's happening, and you're just doing all the right things, like that's kind of like that's that taste. Like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in common. And so when you're in flow states, but imagine this flow state with the universe, and that is, which means everything. Like, so flow state is usually like you're like, okay, I'm gonna section off, do this. This is no, I'm not sectioning out, no blinders. Everything is in flow, and that's amazing. You're just high all the time, and you get shit done because the energies are just where they need to be. So like you're just tripping through life, and you have all the values. So if you have values, don't throw away your values for this because you've made a mistake. You don't necessarily need to grip your values so tightly. A lot of people have values, but that doesn't mean. And then they tend to get stuck in a certain way of expressing those values. And you want to keep the values, but be flexible in how they get expressed. So like just for example, like if you value money, then you could get a different job, and you get a job and you can get second away, but you can also get a different job, and you haven't lost your value of money. You just change jobs. And so obviously like money isn't a good thing to like. You don't want to value money. You want to value other things, and then value money as the secondary thing that gets you those things. And so it's valuable, but it's not intrinsic. It's like more extrinsic value. But let's say like compassion, love, right? So as you go through life, what love means to you is going to change. It's hopefully going to get much more sophisticated and much more open and much more various possibilities. You have like the 5 love languages, right? Like, so when you're a kid, maybe love meant presence. And then when you get older, you're like, oh, well, actually being, touching someone, or words of kindness, or other actions that aren't just necessarily gifts. There's other things as well. And I'm not disrespecting gifts. Like, gifts is one of the love languages. But, you get more sophisticated and you get more ways of expressing yourself. And so maybe you're going to do less gifts, but you're going to do the other 4. And overall, you have more love energy going on, but it's less expressed in a specific way. And so this is what it means to grow as a person. And this is what spirituality is about. It's about self-growth. This is what self-growth, self-development is. It's being able to express yourself in new ways. A very basic one is just speaking a new language. So you speak a new language, you can now express yourself in a different language. And when you learn a new love language, you express yourself in you can love someone in a different way. You can express that love and have that connection or relationship in a different way. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. Sometimes different is better. Sometimes it's not. Either way, it's good to be open to and try new things. Life gets very, very long very quickly if you don't try new things. And oh my God, there's like infinites to explore. If you're not able to explore this, then this is a trick I use when I get stuck in like, oh, life is boring and there's nothing interesting out there, which does happen to me. It's like a real thing that happens to people. I'm gonna end this in a second because my throat hurts. But it's a real thing that happens to people. And my trick for that is, if I knew everything, I wouldn't be bored. Because I know how to not be bored, right? So I don't know everything. And if somebody is interested in something and I'm bored, they actually know something I don't. And a lot of times people reverse this and they say, oh, if someone's interested in something, then that means that they don't know. There's something they don't know that I know. That's why I'm not interested. And that's just arrogance, and you're wrong. Become a better person and recognize that if they're engaged with something, then there's something fascinating that they're experiencing. And this is true with everyone. Like, I have a baby and he looks at stuff that I see. And when I like sit with him and see it in that way, I see it in a new light and I experience more things going on. And I see more and I'm able to try new patterns that I wasn't able to before. I'm still better at him than things because he's the baby. But he does know something I don't know. And as a spiritual person, I'm always willing to grow, because growth is what life is. Life is growth. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And as a kid, it's very easy to grow because most of that stuff just happens naturally. As an adult, people put on weight, and that's a form of growing. But it's not a good one. Trust me on this one. You should be doing other forms of growth that are not just putting on, not just getting physically bigger. You want to get like spiritually bigger, and you want to keep growing. And growth isn't necessarily bigger, right? Because like you can grow more sophisticated over time, and that is a form of growth. And you're not getting bigger. You're staying the same size. You're just more sophisticated, or more open, or you can grow to become a better person. And this is true, I think. There's reasons why this would not be true, because if you're going to be a better person, then that means that goodness was inside you all the whole time, and that's true. But also your manifestation, the way you interact with the world, like you've grown as a person, and everyone needs to acknowledge that. The same way a tree is not the acorn that it came from, but it also is the acorn. Like every acorn is a tree, but also every tree is an acorn, but also they're not the same. Same in some ways, different in others. And so you can grow like a tree can grow, but you can't grow like a tree can't grow in the way that a tree and acorn are the same, but you can grow in the way that the tree and acorn are different. And so this is a thing that people think they come from a bad seed or they came from somewhere. You're wrong. Sorry, I'll just tell you this straightforward. Metaphysically, you're wrong on this. You're a person. You have infinite consciousness. There's no good or bad people. You're a soul that is beyond morality. I mean, no good or bad people. Like like the essence of the person is not good or bad. It transcends this. In a technical sense, it transcends this. I can explain this stuff later, but just to get the basics out, it transcends this, and therefore you're like good and evil aren't these categories. Like these are things that of the body and the flesh and stuff. So when we look at people, we say it's a good person, it's a bad person. Like Hitler was a bad guy, but like there's an infinite soul in there, that of an essence, like a spark of humanity that is transcends that. And but also like the flesh was bad, and taking him out was a good move, and this is the correct decision, right? Even though, ideally we would have him taken, reform him, and all this stuff, but realistically, you can't do this a lot of times, like especially like on these war scales. And this is a thing because we're all the same species, so we're all on the same side. Like we're all humanity, and if you don't acknowledge that, then you've dehumanized yourself. And just because someone's dehumanizing themselves doesn't give you the right to dehumanize them. Whatever they're taking that on, and they're going to be, they're going to suffer those consequences. Because becoming a monster is suffering. You don't want to be a monster. You want to be a good person. This is a good life. Be a good person. Be a strong person. People conflate good and weak, and those things aren't the same. But be good. And what does good mean? You have to figure that out. And I think this is the technical solution. Is I can tell you what I think. I can tell you what I want, like what I think it is, and how I live my life. But at the end of the day, you need to figure this out for yourself, and nobody can tell you. If you really, really suck at it, you can just copy someone else, and that's fine for a time. But really, if you actually want to be a good person, you actually have to discern and see, is this good or bad? And that is for another video.